So with Christmas coming up, I'm kind of at a loss for figuring out what kind of woodworking projects do I want to give my family. And I decided, you know what? Let's go ahead and do a couple turning projects. So I've never worked with too many of these exotic woods before, but from an online store I bought a box of cutoffs. And as you can see here, there are a lot of different types of cutoffs. And different varieties, different species that I've never even worked with before. And decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to make probably my brother-in-law a bottle opener. Needs I figured about a 6-inch handle ought to be good enough. And I got this piece of whatever black stuff this is. It's really hard though. It's going to be interesting to work with. And then I got this little sheet of Padauk, and I really like the color of Padauk. I think it's really bright and cool. So I'm going to cut this thing square, and I'm going to try to resaw it down the middle to get myself 2 little strips. And then I'm going to sandwich them together. So let's go about making this blank. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to cut it down the middle of the piece of wood without having to cut all the way through. Because it's so thin, I have to be very careful about not cutting into my gripper. So what I'm going to do is just bring up to just below the edge, and then after I do that, then I can just break them apart and then just kind of clean it up with a chisel. Just like so. I size the fence to the size of the ebony plank so that my Padauk sizes are all the same size. I'm going for a layered effect right here. Unfortunately, this gets a little bit too thin for how much wood that I have available, so I'm going to have to add another piece. I use a piece of this, whatever it was, like scrap wood or something like that, that I had that's kind of yellow or whitish colored, and I'm just going to use a piece of that, cut it the same length as the Padauk, and then layer them together. Now the one thing I did not show was me gluing this up and then rounding out the blank. But at the end here you can see what it's going to look like. So my design isn't all that complicated. I'm doing 2 concave pieces, like areas, and having to round it over on the ass end of it. As you can see, I'm trying to use as much of the spindle as the blank as possible. So that's why I'm getting awfully close to the spindles, because I'm kind of limited in with how long the pieces were when they originally were cut. Mostly just you can use a gouge and a round chisel. If there's any professional wood turners out there, you can obviously see my noobness. I'm kind of a beginner when it comes to this stuff. So, sorry if I see anything that's obviously wrong. I'm trying to get the overall diameter to be the exact same width as the metal piece that came with the kit. Here I'm using my skew gouge or my skew chisel to produce that round edge. Getting awfully close to hitting that rear spindle, but be careful as I can. and then recheck, and then check for another time just to make sure I'm getting this down to the right diameter. And I keep making fine little adjustments here and there in the shape to kind of get it to what I feel is a comfortable sized handle, that it feels good in the hand. And then here at the end, I'll just use my parting tool to get rid of everything that's from the front spindle back to the actual handle. And yes, the little blank, like flat spots in it are intentional. I thought that at the time I was thinking, well, if it has little flat spots on it, won't roll as much. It gives you something a little bit tactile to grab onto. In retrospect, probably should have ground those off. But here I'm going to start my sanding off with 320. It's either 320 or 220, something like that. And unfortunately, this is the only kind of sandpaper I had available. I didn't have like any micro meshes, so now I'm going up to like 12,000 or some crazy grit like that. But if I were to do it again, I probably would use a higher grit sandpaper. There's still a little bit of marking you can see from the tools on it. Maybe some higher grit sandpaper would have got rid of that. But, oh well. Tack cloth. Clean spot on it. That's all the sawdust it's picked up. Look. Now, boys and girls, is why you don't use long sleeves around a lathe. But that looks pretty damn nice. Gonna use a little bit of Danish oil, natural color. Alright. Look at how well that red pops. Man. Looks beautiful. I'll do about 2 more coats of that and call it good. Here's a clip of what the finished bottle opener looks like. Made of 3 different laminates.